Hi, I'm Jeff. Welcome to HM Wrench. Now in this segment in the series, HM Wrench, Comfortable Off-Grid Living, we'll be assembling and installing a small solar water pump. Now we already have a water pump just like the one we're going to install right here. And this, what this does is this pumps water into this tank, which supplies all our household water needs. It's dug halfway into the ground so it doesn't freeze. But then after this is full, it overflows into this water reservoir right here. Now what that does is, I'm not going to get too far into the reservoir because that's covered in another segment. But so this overflows into there, and that water reservoir takes care of our gardens, the lawn, trees, shrubs, stock tanks. It pretty much takes care of everything. I really don't even use the wind pumps anymore because this has worked so well. But since it works so well, we decided to put another one in. So now you can see down here where there's another frame all sitting. The post is all concreted into the ground and everything's ready to accept that solar panel. But we're not going to go back there right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go in the shop and we're going to show the parts to this kit that we bought and the parts necessary to get this in the well and get it out of the well to into our water tank. So we'll go into the shop and we'll take care of that. Now this pump was bought off the internet. Karen went looking for it and this is what she found, and we ended up with, like I say, with the one, and that worked so well we bought another one. So this kit consists of 3 parts. And so you got the pump, you got a charge controller, and you got the solar panel. Now to make this all work, we have to add 3 more parts. So we have to add poly pipe, which is what the water comes up in. And this just comes in a big roll. And I've got that roll, I unrolled it, and I got it laying flat outside because it needs to lay flat, otherwise when you're working with it, it keeps trying to curl up on you. So you end up having this poly pipe, and then with the clamps, you have to have the wire, and you have to have a rope, because when this is hanging in the water, you can't have this hanging off of the electric wire or the water line. It has to be, this has to bear the weight of the pump and the water that's going to be inside of it. So what you need to do, you need to find out how far down this is going to go in your well. So our static water level, which is how far down the water is from the ground, is 50 foot. So I'm going to make this about 70 foot. So I have to have a little over 70 foot of this wire, plus quite a bit over 70 foot of this, because on the wire you got to go to the panel or to the charge controller, and on the poly pipe we have to go to a tank. So there's going to be quite a bit. So we're going to be like 90 foot of this. So when you put this electric together, this is one thing. Now you need to hook this, and it's all on the instructions. Very simple the way they set it up. But these connections have to be watertight. So you can go down to the hardware store and buy watertight connectors for this, no problem, and I would advise doing that. I can do it without the watertight connectors. Since I live 100 miles from a hardware store, I have to learn how to do stuff myself, but I don't recommend that. I would just go get the parts needed. But this has to be watertight. So what I'm going to do is hook all this up and tie it all together, and when I'm done with that, I'm going to show you exactly how it looks. All right, here we are. It's been a few days since that last scene because we had some pretty bad weather, quite a bit of snow, but it's all melted now and the mud's about dried up, so we can continue on with this project. So you can see I got all this stuff hooked up, the water line, the poly pipe here, and I used 2 hose clamps on this. That's important on this. If you can put 2 hose clamps, do it, because the one thing you don't want is down in the well, this thing to come off. So, okay, if that happens, then you got to bring the whole thing out of the well again. So it's best just to be safe on that, and or sorry later. So I got that hooked up, the rope. Now that's going to bear all the weight for this. You don't want the weight being borne from the pipe or the wire. And you can see the wire's kind of loose because I don't want the weight of that on the wire. Okay, so that part's all ready to go. So down here, you can see where, right here is where the splice was for the wire I got and what was on the pump to begin with. Now if you went to the hardware store and got a watertight connector, well then this would look a whole lot different. But and again, I'd still suggest the watertight connectors from the hardware store. But anyway, this will work. And so here's our splice. So we're going up here, and I got to show you, you can see where I got it taped together about every 4 or 5 feet, and that's just to kind of hold stuff together, because down in this well I got some other stuff in there, and I don't want stuff getting tangled up, so I want to keep it together here. So now we'll go down clear to the end here. So all this is going to be in the well. Only about 20 foot of it is going to be in the water. But so at the top here, I've got an eye bolt onto the rope. And I also have a hole in the side of the well casing. So this is going to slip in there. When we put all this in there, you want to also have a rope here with a handle, just for helping to get it in and out. But this will slip in that hole in the well casing, and everything's going to hang by this, and the rest of the rope's just going to hang in there. So it's just these two that will be sticking out the top of the well. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and get set up and push this pump into the well and hook everything up. All right, so I got the well cap off, and you can see when I said that I had other stuff down here, and that's why I kept that together. I didn't want to get them tangled. What this is you can see this air line right here, and there's only 2 lines that go down here. Is the air line that goes down and the water line that comes up. And what this is attached to these wind pumps. And what these are, they're just wind-powered air compressors, and that compresses air, and we send that down into the well, and that's what brings the water up. But that's all covered in another segment, so we're just gonna disregard that right now. So you can see here, I got all my tools that I think I'm gonna need. The one thing you don't want to do is have this thing hanging and say, oh, I forgot such tool. So then somebody's got a hold of it while you go get tools. So I think I got everything I need. I've run it through my head, the whole process, so I think I got everything I need. So what we're ready to do, I'm gonna slide this underneath here and try to stay away from this other stuff. And so Karen's gonna have to put the camera down and help me with these lines. So as soon as we get it in there, but once I get that eye bolt into this hole, then I can relax, and then I take my time on buttoning everything up. So we're going to do that right now. All right, so we're down in the well, got the cover back on. So now what I'm going to do is, see, this is kind of a sharp edge here. So I have another lid here that I'm going to put on, or cap that I'm going to put on over this, and you can see it's like keyhole shape because I have to have room for this wire. And so after I get that in, then I'm going to put this around this, and this will go into that hole to keep this from rubbing against here and causing a hole. And also I'll put some caulking around the wire to keep it from getting cut into by this lid. So now I can just button everything up. This wire will end up going to the charge controller, and the water line will go to a tank, which I'm going to have right here. And what we're going to do with this is we're going to plant some trees out in this field, and so from then on, from this tank, then it will go out and disperse the water onto the trees. So we'll come back when I get this all buttoned up and hooked up. Now this has been a while since the last scene, but you can see I've done a lot of work out here since then. But now you can see on this electrical, we've got the pump in. Now I brought this electrical up, and this is all hooked up into the charge controller, and this is all on the simple instructions. This is very easy to do. You know, it comes to a battery over here, and again, this is all listed on their instructions. But something I do different is I put in a switch. So the pump comes up into the switch first before it goes into the controller, and this just gives me more control over when I want this pump working and not working. Now this poly pipe goes right up into the tank. Now, one thing I want to explain on this that I didn't before is in a cold climate like what we have, because we're still freezing virtually every morning. So what I did about 3 or 4 foot down on this poly pipe, down from the ground level, I put just a little small, like a 1/16 inch hole in this poly pipe. So what that does is after I'm done using it for the day, this will all drain back down because that's below the freezing point. So this keeps this clear. So in the next morning, I can just turn the pump on if I need it, and it'll start pumping again and not be frozen. But this, so you can see where the poly pipe goes up into this tank. Now what I'm using here is about a 400-gallon tank. And when I first hooked it up, I turned it on, and it took about 3 hours to fill this tank. So that's not too bad for just a little 12-volt pump. So from this tank, you can see it goes out into the field here. And this is where we're planting our apple trees. You can see as everything's all the drip lines are all set and everything's ready. We've planted 40 of them. We got 20 more to plant. Now, one more thing on this tank. See, I got this a lid on it to keep all the debris out of it, so that keeps those drippers clear. Now, I just wanted to show you this solar panel mount before we go. So what I started with, this is all made out of just scrap metal that I keep. I have a good scrap metal pile. And right here, this is off of one of those old satellite dishes, and I like using these because they give you adjustments. So you can see it's kind of hard to see because everything's black, but this will give you the adjustment for the season. So if it's the summertime, you want the solar panel fairly flat because the sun's way up in the air. If not, then you want it pointed more toward the south. So this gives you that adjustment. And so here I got something else here. This is just you can see this is off of an old barrel. It's just, again, it's just all scrap. But this gives me adjustment east and west. So in the mornings I can tilt this, see how far I can tilt that to get that morning sun. So this gives me probably 30% more water during the day if I need it, because it's giving me more energy, because this only puts out the maximum amount when the sun's hitting it directly. And so this gives me the adjustment so I can do that and get more water. Now, you could also just put this solar panel on a piece of plywood or something, but the problem is you have to protect it from the wind. If the wind takes it, your solar panel's done. Now with that wraps up this segment in the series, Comfortable Off-Grid Living. Thanks for watching.